All right, we'll call this general committee meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Good to see everybody back. We'll start our meeting with the following land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. We'll now take 30 seconds to reflect. Please stand for the singing of the national anthem. And the Council for the City of Peterborough recognizes the principles contained in our Constitution and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. All right, before we move on, Councillor Purnell, I think you wanted to make a few comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do appreciate the opportunity. I do have some sad news to share, and I'm asking if people will join me in sending sympathy and condolences to Henry and Donna Clark on the passing of Donna's mother, Joan Elizabeth McCullough. She passed away December 16th at the age of 91. And unfortunately, we also lost Henry's brother, Arthur Clark, December 21st at age 88. So it was obviously a difficult Christmas for our dear friends. So I did want to acknowledge them and send them deep condolences. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Purnell. All right, adoption of minutes, October 27th, November 3rd, November 3rd special, November 10th, November 17th, and November 18th. Moved by Councillor Vassiliadis. Any comments or questions, errors or omissions? We'll take a vote. That is carried. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we have Councillors Burke, Duguay, and Hickey.
All right, Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Chair Beamer. I'm going to declare on item 10B, which is closed session of a business relationship with one of the people named in the report.
Very good. Thank you for that, Councillor Burke. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. Similarly, item 10B, report arising from closed session. The two property owners involved at one point were former clients of mine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duguay. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Committee report 12G, designation of 201 George Street North. Report IPGPL 26-001. I'm declaring as the owner is a client of mine.
Thank you. We'll separate that out for a vote. All right, closed session. We do have 5 items coming out of closed session. The first one, land acquisition. That council approved the recommendation outline in report LSRS 26-002 dated January 12th, 2026 of the Commissioner of Legislative Services as follows. That respecting a proposed land acquisition, staff be directed to proceed as outlined in closed session report LSRS 26-002 dated January 12th, 2026 of the Commissioner Legislative Services, moved by Councillor Hakey. Any comments or questions? We'll take a vote. That is carried. Second item, subject lands that council approved the recommendation outlined in report LSRS 26-002 dated January 12th, 2026 of the Commissioner Legislative Services as follows. That respecting a proposed land acquisition, staff be directed to proceed as outlined in closed session report LSRS 26-002 dated January 12th, 2026 of the Commissioner Legislative Services, moved by Councillor Parnell. Any comments or questions? We will take a vote, and this is the item that Councillor Burke and Councillor Duguay have declared a pecuniary on. And that is carried, and Councillor Burke and Councillor Duguay did not vote. Third item, litigation. That council approved the recommendation outlined in report LS0CS 26-001 dated January 12th, 2026 of the city solicitor as follows. That staff be directed to proceed as outlined in closed session report LS0CS 26-002 dated January 12th, 2026 of the city solicitor respecting litigation instructions, moved by Councillor Duguay. Any comments or questions? All right, we'll take a vote. Councillor Baldwin's a yay. Sorry. Councillor Hake, are you a yay or a nay? Yay. Yeah, I think we're having some troubles with it. And that is carried. Thanks, everyone. Fourth item coming out of closed, small claims that council approved the recommendation outlined in report LS0CS 26-002 dated January 12th, 2026 of the city solicitor as follows. That staff be directed to proceed as outlined in closed session report LS0CS 26-002 dated January 12th, 2026 of the city solicitor respecting litigation instructions, small claims, moved by Councillor Reel. Any comments or questions? We'll take a vote. That is carried. And the fifth item coming out of closed, litigation. That council received for information conclusion of litigation Northcrest Neighbors versus City of Peterborough et al. Superior Court file number CV-113 report LS0CS 26-003 dated January 12th, 2026 of the city solicitor. Moved by Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Baldwin, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what I'd like to do, that respecting closed report LSOCS 26-003, conclusion of litigation / Northcrest neighbors versus City of Peterborough. I'd like to move a motion that council waive solicitor-client privilege respecting the report, and that B, staff cause the report to be made available to the public. And I'm just wondering, Mr. Chair, if I could ask Commissioner Potts a question before council considers the motion.
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
So Commissioner Potts, given that I've put the motion before council for their consideration, would there be any implications to the legal interests of the corporation by having this report go public, in your opinion?
Commissioner? Mr. Chair, first, of course, we're in general committee, and solicitor-client privilege belonging to the municipal corporation has to be waived by council if that ever were to happen. Number two, in terms of the city's legal interests being impaired in the specific circumstances of this report, I would say no, they would. The city's legal interests would not be impaired. And if I may make one additional comment, Mr. Chair, the report is pretty clinical. It's chronological. It simply sets out exactly what happened, and frankly, I think the citizens that council served might benefit from the opportunity to read the same report the council has read. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councillor Baldwin?
I think that's all I wanted to ask the commissioner before council considered that. And Mr. Chair, if the motion carries, then I have another motion with respect to a special council meeting, because I believe that we'd have to waive the procedural bylaw to deal with this at a future minute. So
Sure.
This is the first one now, and then I've sent the other information to the clerk on Friday. So we'll see where this one goes, and we'll go from there.
If it passes, I'll come back to you. Okay, speaking on the motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Burke?
Chair Beamer, thank you. Just a question of clarification through you to Commissioner Potts, please. Can you just clarify for me, does this waive client solicitor privilege on the entire case? Because we've seen, we've talked about this case in closed session a couple of times, or is it just specific to the single report from tonight?
Mr. Chair, there's always an issue of solicitor-client privileges being waived as to the implications beyond, in this case, the specific report. Having said that, and it might stand to be corrected, and I see my colleague, Mr. Seabrook, at the back of the room. I think this is the first time that council has actually received a report on this matter. If my recollection is correct. So I'm not really in answer to the question. It's a good question, Mr. Chair, but I can't see any prejudice to the city's interests in any event as I think about the proceeding and what actually happened and the chronology and the explanations that are in the report. It's all there. There's nothing about any of the disclosure that I think would prejudice the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burke?
I just, minding my what I say in open session, it's my recollection that we received a report about this case prior to tonight, and I was just asking for clarification whether or not the entire closed session reports around this matter, that the client solicitor privilege will be waived for the entirety of the reports on this matter, or just the singular report from tonight, which sort of summarizes what happened.
So Councillor Baldwin, maybe Councillor Baldwin, if you could just provide some insight.
So from my perspective, Mr. Chair, I've specifically referenced this closed session report, and that's the intent of my motion, to deal with this particular report and have that become public.
Okay, so I think Councillor Burke is, yeah. Okay, any further comments or questions? Councillor Chica?
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair Beamer. Just to clarify as well, that means that solicitor-client privilege is also lifted regarding the conversation that occurred around that report. in closed session. Just to clarify, thank you very much.
Commissioner?
That I might confirm with the clerk that the city is recording closed sessions now, and they are. The motion concerns waiving solicitor-client privilege on the report. Having said that, as well, if council were to, if someone were to take a position that the waiver extends to the closed session discussion, which was recorded, and if council were to be making a decision about whether to waive solicitor-client privilege on that closed session, I would probably give the same answer in terms of implications. No negative implications in terms of the city's legal interests. The intent of the motion is simply the report, making the report public, and it may be that council just takes the vote and see where it goes from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor LaChica?
Thank you. So I just want to definitively, I take from that yes, indeed, any presentation of the report and the discussion therewith also would be subject to the lifting of the solicitor-client privilege. That's my understanding, unless, Chair, you can correct me on that.
So Commissioners, my understanding, it's just the report. So if you can just give would the audio be a part of the report? Just
I think the city's position would be, if I may suggest this, Councillor Baldwin's made a motion that will be voted on, and that's council's intention. And if someone were to pursue the issue, it might be produced in one of two ways. If someone were to pursue the issue and make a demand for a copy of the in-camera recording, then unless council proactively waives privilege, then they'd be going through the MFIPA records request process, and that would determine the outcome. And again, having said that, the in-camera discussion was really just about what's in the report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor LaChica?
Thanks for now. That will suffice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor LaChica. Any further comments or questions? Moved by Councillor Baldwin, we'll take a vote. And that is carried. Councillor Baldwin?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The next part, Mr. Clerk, you may have to help me this a little bit, but I believe, given council's decision here, I'd like to make the following motion for a special council meeting. I believe each part would need to be voted on separately because of the 2/3 requirement. So I'll read the motion and defer to you for anything further. 2 parts. Part A, that the requirements of the procedure bylaw be waived to the extent permitting a special council meeting to be convened immediately for the sole purpose of approving the general committee resolution respecting closed report LSOCS 26-003, and B, that the general committee meeting of January 12th, 2026 be received forthwith to permit a special council meeting referred to in Part A. I believe that has to happen in order for us to consider it, but I'll defer to the clerk, Mr. Chair.
So Mr. Clerk, if you just some guidance, sorry if I'm not too sure, so that means the council meeting would just happen right after this general committee meeting if those two pass, is that correct? Just for everybody to be aware?
Mr. Clerk, thank you for Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. That's correct. The councillor has moved a 2-part motion. If I may just reiterate, A reads that the requirements of the procedure bylaw be waived to the extent permitting a special council meeting to be convened immediately for the sole purpose of approving the general committee resolution respecting closed session report LSOCS 26-003. And as the councillor had mentioned, that would require a 2/3 vote because hasn't been sufficient notice for the council meeting.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a vote. And by immediately, you mean right now, we'd recess it and have, okay. No, that makes sense. Okay, so, so A and B, we'll separate them out, two separate votes. We'd need 2/3 for each vote, but, or just for the first one? Okay, sorry, just for the first one. So, speaking to A or B, Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Chair Beamer. Just trying to understand this on the fly. I think like all of us are. So this just means this is the secondary step from your previous motion, which will put the in-camera report public. It'll be part of this special council meeting that will happen tonight, and then the public will have a week to review that report, which is now public, and we'll ratify it next week. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. If council were to support a special council meeting this evening, then the motions that were before you would be approved this evening. Then that matter would be ratified tonight. There would be no motions or no discussion further to go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll speak to that. I think I can support the previous motion, which is bringing this report into the public light. I can support that. But I believe it's like kind of counter logical to say on one hand, let's make this public, but then let's not allow for this to be part of the public process. So I won't vote in favor of the special council meeting, because I think that if we're taking this report and we're making it public, then it should be part of the same mechanisms as every other public report, where the public will see it and they may or may not have a chance to come speak to it next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rick. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Baldwin, second time.
All I would say, it's not an anomaly. I believe this has been used before, and I could ask the clerk to perhaps give an example of where this council has used the same mechanism.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll take a vote. The first, we'll separate them out, and A needs 2/3. And that is carried. And then the second item, and this just needs a simple majority. And that is carried. All right, we stand in adjournment, and I'll pass it over to the mayor for a special city council meeting.
Thanks very much. Chair Beamer. Mr. Clerk, just to get some guidance from you, do I go to Councillor Baldwin? That be correct?
Thanks, Your Worship. That'd be correct. Just to initiate the council meeting, we would need a mover and a seconder for the.
You're moving it, Councillor Baldwin, second Councillor Duguay. Councillor Baldwin, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. The respecting close, I'd like to move the following, Your Worship. The respecting closed report LSOCS 26-003. Conclusion of litigation / Northcrest Neighbors versus City of Peterborough. A, that council waives solicitor-client privilege respecting the report. And B, staff caused the report to be made available to the public. And I'd like to just speak to it very briefly. Proceed. Your Worship, if this motion it's been duly moved and seconded now, I believe that if the motion is approved or it's being considered, it would give city council members an opportunity now to ask Commissioner Potts or City Solicitor Seabrook any questions that you might have that would clarify anything with respect to the report that I'm asking to be in the public domain. And those would conclude my reports, my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thanks very much. Councillor Baldwin, questions for Mr. Potts or Mr. Seabrook? Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Mr. Kennedy.
Sorry, Mr. Clerk. Sorry.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just as a matter of procedure, I might suggest if once a vote has occurred and the council has made a ruling on this, then it may be more appropriate at that time, just following the vote. Then it'd be more appropriate. Then we know the council has provided the direction in those moments.
So we want to vote on what Councillor Baldwin has moved to Councillor Duguay second.
That'd be my suggestion.
And then we'll start the process from there. Okay, we'll go to a vote. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
We're in a
Councillor
special,
Hickey, please.
A question. Did we constitute the meeting properly? I know there was a mover and a seconder of the motion, but do you need a mover and a seconder to come into council?
Clerk,
Or am
please.
I missing something?
Thanks, Your Worship, for the question. That motion did occur just in general committee to then convene a special council meeting and also then to recess general committee to then move into council. So we did
So
move
it's
into
automatic,
council.
okay.
So we're here now.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
So, Mr. Clerk, we're dealing with the vote right now.
yes, thank you, Your Worship, if that's your direction. And I might
Yep.
just, as my colleague mentioned, as this is just a special meeting convened this evening, any votes will just be due by, if I could say, show of hands, the old style, or if you just want to call it your vote. And
I can call it.
my colleague will record the vote. So it'll be a manual vote.
Councillor Chica? No. Councillor Burke? Councillor Crowley? Councillor Vassiliadis? Councillor Hickey?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Beamer?
Yes.
Mayor Leal?
Yes.
Councillor Rial? Councillor Baldwin? Councillor Parnell? Yes. Councillor Duguay?
Carry, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. So council has effectively waived solicitor client privilege respecting the report and that has directed staff to cause the report to be made available to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'll now go to Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question, if I might, to Mr. Kennedy, our city clerk. Mr. Kennedy, given this motion, by approving this motion, we are in fact making available a report that otherwise would be limited to closed session. We're now, by virtue of this motion, making this important report available to the community, correct?
Mr. Clerk.
That's correct, Your Worship. Council has directed staff in recommendation B to cause the report to be made available to the public.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the opportunity to have that matter clarified. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Further questions? Councillor Crowley, please.
I have a question for Commissioner Potts, if I may.
Steve?
Through you, Your Worship, to Commissioner Potts. Would you feel it would be appropriate to sort of summarize from Legislative Services point of view, just a general overview of the report and how it affected the Legislative Services team?
Mr. Potts, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would summarize the key takeaway of the case as follows. It purported to be public interest litigation, and there was a related GoFundMe campaign that was about process and about strong mayor powers. The judgment, Madam Justice Woodley's decision on the city's motion, security for cost motion, has a very specific finding that it was not public interest litigation. It was very much about not in people's backyards. That's what it was about. The report has information that confirms that was the true purpose behind the litigation. And Madam Justice Woodley came to that conclusion. Legislative Services, the Legal Services Division specifically, respects the judgment of Madam Justice Woodley. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. That's good. Thank you, Commissioner.
Further questions? Further questions? Mr. Potts, I have a question. There is a term now that is being used south of the border, the American justice system, the weaponization of the justice system to achieve political ends. It's never been something that's characterized the Canadian justice system. But I would like to hear your comments, your vast experience in municipal law, how this weaponization has been used in
Point of
this
order, what,
particular case.
point of order, what does that have to do
Has
with
to do a
what we're
lot with
talking
it.
about here? That's only your thoughts about what's happening, nothing to do with what we're doing here tonight.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with it.
It has
with
nothing to
this
do
case.
with what's happening here. This
I
is
would-
this is your thoughts and nobody else's.
No,
It
it's
has no forum here.
it's an issue of the justice system now that's impacting municipalities. Mr. Potts, please.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Point of order. This is not relevant to a written document that we voted on to be made public. There should be no elaboration because we only agreed to writing. And if we're going to begin to elaborate on a narrative that is an opinion, based on an opinion, and we don't even connect the relevance to this report, then we can begin to discuss the other items that were discussed in closed session, but that is being forbidden. So I clerk, and through you, Chair, would ask that this not proceed. I think that this is complete elaboration on one's opinion, and we're drawing comparisons that have no relevance whatsoever to the Municipal Act of Ontario. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
With all due respect, I think this is very germane to this because Justice Woodley's decision now becomes precedent for the other 444
Point of order.
municipalities.
Through you, clerk, the chair is elaborating on something that has no relevance whatsoever to this report. And any further elaboration is a matter of conjecture and opinion and has no relevance to this report. The chair is out of order. Clerk, I would like to ask for a ruling, or I would like to challenge the chair. And I'm asking the clerk because the chair is presiding and he hasn't given up the chair in order to ask to be able to speak or debate on something that is not debatable right now. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would defer to the chair for any ruling.
If we want to have a vote to challenge the chair, let's have a vote. But it is relevant. Mr. Potts, you want to answer? I asked you to answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let's go to the vote.
So you're going to be voting on whether you support the decision of the chair.
Yep.
Councillor Lucica,
I do not.
Councillor Burke,
Do not.
Councillor Crowley,
Yes.
Councillor Vasiliadis,
Yes.
Councillor Hakey,
Yes.
Councillor Beamer, Mayor Leal,
Yes.
Councillor Riel, Councillor Baldwin, Councillor Parnell,
Yes.
Councillor Duguay. That's carried 8-3.
Mr. Potts, if you could answer the question, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think I'll begin by pointing out it is an odd thing generally for lawyers to be saying what they think in an open session of a council meeting. But my client is no less worthy than any other lawyer's client, so I'm going to answer the question and thank you for it. I am concerned. The question is, am I concerned? And I am concerned. Madam Justice Woodley has pointed out that this litigation purported to be for one purpose, and it was actually for another. And the citizens that council represents were asked to donate to a GoFundMe campaign. And that's the second time in less than a year that that's happened. And we do not have unlimited resources. They're not vast resources.
Through you, Chair, this is not relevant to council, to the public, to a city commissioner to elaborate on whether they feel a GoFundMe campaign is appropriate or not for the public. That is not the jurisdiction of a commissioner. It is not the jurisdiction of councillors. And to be using our time in a forum that is irrelevant to our business is just inappropriate and out of order. This is not appropriate to be giving an opinion about fundraising and whether it's okay for the public to do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Potts, continue, please.
The city is a corporate litigant like any other litigant in the Superior Court of Justice. And a campaign, a GoFundMe campaign that's used to pursue litigation against the city is a concern. And it's particularly a concern where the GoFundMe campaign purported to be public interest litigation. And Madam Justice Woodley found that it was not. So in answer to the question, Your Worship, am I concerned? I am concerned. And I think it's, again, your lawyers, the city's lawyers represent the municipal corporation. Council represents the residents of the city of Peterborough. I'm one of those two. And on behalf of council, I think you should be concerned as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Potts. Mr. Dugay, or Councillor Dugay, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we have concluded that the report that otherwise would have been remain within the germane of closed session is now available to the community. And I certainly support that. Your Worship, from your, and perhaps I'll ask Mr. Maybe similar supplementary to the clerk, thus the same report is now available to municipalities across Ontario, whether or not we distribute it, but it now becomes available to communities across Ontario, correct? Your Worship, from your perspective, and I'll ask Mr. Clerk if I can, if he would agree that it would become available as a matter of public record to municipalities.
Mr. Clerk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the staff would be making the report available to the public.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Clerk, next step here.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next step would be a confirming bylaw. We would require a mover and a seconder for bylaw number 26.
Point of order, sorry. I don't know if the chair saw, but when the chair said any other questions, Councillor LaChica had her hand up.
I'm sorry, I missed. I apologize. Councillor Chico.
Thank you very much. I would just like to make a couple of remarks before we conclude this. And I'm speaking to what our commissioner just raised about Justice Woodley, and that she ruled that it was a NIMBY a premise this case was based on. That may have been Justice Woodley's conclusion, but we do have a forum that is political and that has to do with our municipal governance. And as councillors, we are representatives of the public, and there are differing opinions about whether this is a NIMBY issue. And all due respect to Justice Woodley and the decision that that Superior Court made. But my point is that there were 7 councillors that voted against a strong mayor motion of council that argued for the issue being the process and other issues than NIMBY factors involved in this. It had to do with factors related to having changed the site. It was on a different site that we had initially made the decision on $250,000. But it was suddenly changed. There was not transparency around the issue, and there was a process problem. The public knew it, we knew it, and so did 7 councillors who voted against this. So regardless of what this report says, there is a difference of opinion in this community amongst Northcrest residents, and I believe amongst the 7 councillors who actually voted against it in the first place. Justice Woodley wasn't there. There were 3 councillors that were at, and I will name them because councillors are being named in proceedings, but there were councillors that were from Northcrest and myself, and Councillor Riel as well, that happened to be at one of those Northcrest neighbor meetings because there was such primal shock at the process. So whether or not that reached the ears and the heart and the mind of Justice Woodley doesn't matter, in the sense that in this forum, in this public forum, in this city of Peterborough, we know what happened. And the decision to go forward and litigate this was made without the decision of all this council. And I need to say that for the record, and it needs to be stated. So the fact that this is going public is a good thing, because then the public can see what the reflections and analysis is. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Clerk, Councillor Baldwin, bylaw, second by Councillor Duguay.
Yeah, I do move it, Your Worship, but I would respectfully to say the only decision that matters is the decision of the judge and her opinion in this case on factual evidence that was presented. Doesn't matter what I think or any other councillor thinks right now, the decision's been made, and that's why I wanted this report out in the public domain. Because what I read on social media and in some of the reports, we're not getting the full story. So I agree with the councillor. The report is now public, and it should be public, and I encourage the public to read it from the first cover to the end. Thank you. I'd be happy to move the report.
Next, been moved by Councillor Baldwin, the bylaw, Councillor Duguay. Anything further, we'll go to a vote on the bylaw.
Confirming bylaw. Councillor Duguay,
Yes.
Councillor Parnell,
Yes.
Councillor Riel, Councillor Baldwin, Mayor Leal,
Yes.
Councillor Beamer, Councillor Hakey,
Yes.
Councillor Vasiliadis, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Burke, Councillor LaChica.
Yes.
It's carried 11-0.
Motion to adjourn. Councillor Baldwin, Councillor Parnell, we'll go to a vote. Deputy Clerk?
Councillor LaChica, this is adjournment.
Adjourn.
Yes.
Councillor Burke, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Vasiliadis, Councillor Hakey, Councillor Beamer, Mayor Leal,
Yes.
Councillor Riel, Councillor Baldwin, Councillor Duguay, and Councillor Parnell. That's carried 11-0.
Council's adjourned. We'll go back to General Committee. Mr. Chair, it's yours.
Thank you, Mayor Leo. All right, so we'll move to our consent agenda. Committee members, let me know if you'd like to speak to any of the following items. 12A, Integrity Commissioner Report. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Seeing none. 12B, Integrity Commissioner Report. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Councillor Reel. 12C, Integrity Commissioner Report. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Seeing none. 12D, Integrity Commissioner Report. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Councillor Burke. 12E, Organic Power Generation Nuclear Host Community Funding Agreement. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Councillor Burke. 12F, Traffic Technical Working Group. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Councillor Riel. We'll separate out 12G because Councillor Hakey has the pecuniary. 12H, Designation of 227 to 233 Hunter Street West. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Councillor Hakey. So up for consent this evening, 12A and 12C, moved by Councillor Baldwin. We'll take a vote. And that is carried. All right, our first item, 12B, Integrity Commissioner Report. Councillor Real.
Through the chair, I will move it and like to speak to it. The Integrity Commissioner, Guy Juneau, has fully exonerated me. That independent finding matters for me personally, but more importantly, for public trust and for the ability of an elected official to do their job without fear of retaliation, reputation to harm. For some, this has been an effort by some senior staff to discredit me and to stymie my work as an elected representative. I do not respond to rhetoric or speculation. I follow the proper procedure and welcome independent scrutiny. The process has now spoken clearly. The allegations were unfounded. I take no satisfaction in this outcome. My objection has never been to conflict. My objective is and remains to serve the people who elected me, to ask difficult questions, to advocate for residents, and to assure accountability in how this city is governed. I will continue to carry out my duties in a professional, respectful, and principled manner when working with council and staff. At the same time, I will not be deterred from doing my job voted and entrusted to me. This finding should also serve as an opportunity to reflect on the culture at City Hall. Healthy governance depends on accountability, open dialogue, and respectful disagreement. Independent oversight, critical questioning are not threats, but essential to a functioning democracy. As we move towards the municipal election on October 26, 2026 and beyond, I remain committed and help foster a strong, more transparent, and more respectful governance culture at City Hall, one that puts residents first and earns the confidence of the public we serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Real. Comments or questions? Councillor Burke.
Quickly, Chair, thank you for the opportunity. I think the thing to me, the sort of gentle thing to me that stood out in this report was Guy Giorno's reflections on and comments on our portfolio chairs bylaw. He pointed out a couple of areas in which to him seemed confusing, and that was sort of validating. A lot of stuff in this report actually was validating to myself personally, but that's a more sort of heated, thorny side of it. The sort of gentle side is that I've been the one who's spoken out against the portfolio chair changes since day one, and they had to come back to council after 6 months because when they were first put on the table, there were some issues that had to be ironed out. And I think this report is validating in that sense because Guy Giorno, he's very sort of analytical. And to me, having been in what this report is about, having been lived through the emails and the calls and the community stuff, to see him so clearly just go line by line about what happened, that's a beautiful thing to read. And it proves to me that he's very smart and has a good sense to him to sort of understand these things. And so the takeaway, I think, for us, maybe it's something for the next term of council to consider looking at is the portfolio chair's bylaw, because he says a few times over and over in the report that there are some areas in which council might want to take a look at so that situations like this don't happen again. Thank you, Chair. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Burke. Councillor Crowley.
Thank you, Chair, and Councillor Burke touched on something that I was going to ask Commissioner Potts regarding this report, regarding the portfolio chair's bylaw and any sort of tweaking that might be needed to that, and if there's any contemplation of that being occurring.
Mr. Chair, having read the report myself, I see the references to confusion in relation to the application of the facts of the particular case. Whether or not one agrees that the bylaw is actually confusing, I think the issue has been raised by the Integrity Commissioner, and actually it would be my recommendation. It's certainly, I think council is best served by mitigating all risk of any confusion at all. The principal purpose served by the portfolio chair's bylaw was to actually delegate authority that didn't exist but for the bylaw. And that was confidential information sharing. Because absent the bylaw, individual members of staff actually can't really discuss anything in confidence with individual members of council who in many respects have to be treated like members of the public. So it was intended to free the portfolio chairs to consult with and be consulted by commissioners, myself included, and for confidential information sharing. So my recommendation in response to the question, Mr. Chair, would be, I recommend that someone make a motion to refer the bylaw to me wearing my city solicitor hat for a review and recommendations, if any, respecting the bylaw in order to ensure that it cannot be said to be confusing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Crowley.
Yeah, I'll make that motion if that's appropriate, or I'll do it when
Maybe other
it is
business.
appropriate.
Yeah, maybe bring it forward in other business, either tonight or in 2 weeks.
Sure. Thank you.
Any
Thank
further
you.
comments or questions? Moved by Councillor Real, we'll take a vote. And that is carried. 12D, Integrity Commission Report. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. I want to begin by thanking the Trent Central Students Association, the Afrocentric Awareness Network of Peterborough, and the 9 individuals who brought complaints to the Integrity Commissioner, as well as the over 800 people who signed the petition in response to Mayor Leal's use of the N-word. What's before us tonight is not about a footnote in a history lesson. It's about a racial slur spoken by the mayor of our city. The Integrity Commissioner's report is clear. The N-word is odious, vile, and dehumanizing. Some have sought to minimize this incident by focusing on context and intent. Some have used their positions to justify and defend this behavior. The harm caused by this word does not depend on context. It does not depend on whether it was quoted or directed at someone. The harm is real, it is documented in the report, and it has been felt deeply by members of our community. Our police reported hate crime is nearly double the national average and 34% higher than Ontario's rate. That's alarming. Over the past 5 years, hate crime reporting in Peterborough has roughly tripled. We, as a city, are members of the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities, which calls on cities to monitor and address racism and discrimination. Tonight is an opportunity for us to demonstrate what that membership means. This conversation must be centered around the people that were harmed. It must be centered on the safety and dignity of our Black and racialized community members, and it must be centered on our choices as elected officials. What rules will we put in place? What standards will we uphold, and what kind of city do we want to live in? The Integrity Commissioner tells us something important. He tells us that our code of conduct as currently written does not cover what occurred on March 19th. The Commissioner explicitly recommends that if Council wants to prohibit the use of racial slurs, we must amend the code. I want to read to you paragraph 115 from the report, and I quote, Council needs to simply amend the code. For example, Council could insert a new paragraph 10D that reads, quote, use the N-word regardless of context or circumstance. If our rules cannot address the use of a racial slur, then our rules are broken. So now we have a choice. We can close ranks, minimize, and move on, or we can take responsibility tonight and make changes. Mr. Chair, I'm moving the following motion. Be it resolved that city staff be directed to amend the 2023 to 2050 strategic plan to include anti-racism and race relations as a strategic priority under the community and well-being pillar, as well as recommended by the Integrity Commissioner. 2, all members of council and senior staff receive anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion training with an implementation plan and a timeline to be brought back to council within 90 days. 3, city staff be directed to review and amend the council code of conduct to explicitly prohibit the use of racial slurs, including but not limited to the N-word, regardless of context or circumstance, in alignment with the Integrity Commissioner's finding and recommendations, with proposed amendments to be presented to council within 60 days. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Can we get that up there? Okay, speaking to the amendment, Councillor Lachika on the amendment and Councillor Real. Councillor Lachika.
Thank you very much through you, Chair Beamer. I'd like to thank my colleague for this motion, and speaking to it, I'd like to say how shocked and dismayed I was for the 9 complainants case and its outcome. through you, Chair, for the impact that this outcome must have on them, the Trent student community, and Peterborough's Black and racialized community at large. If a comment is inappropriate and merits a recommendation that such a slur be spelled out as forbidden on a council code of conduct, how could that use of a slur not meet the threshold? This is my analysis. And in the findings of fact on page 135, I was struck by the power of the phrase not being aware. And it's flexed as a free pass of sorts. Not being aware that it is unacceptable, to quote the word directly, is unacceptable. Not being aware is indicative of a need for education, as the motion recommends. The outcome essentially directs that we need to accept that these moments just happen and that we have to forgive without asking for substantive remedy and repair. An outcome that does not truly acknowledge the centuries-long history of dehumanizing, vilifying, violating, harming, and killing of Black people, and for that reason alone, how deeply unacceptable it is for non-Black people to use it. The NAACP have held funerals for the N-word, emphasizing that it is a tool of racial oppression regardless of intent or context. School boards and university in both the US and Canada, including the Toronto Catholic District School Board, have implemented strict policies regarding the use of the N-word, leading to book bans for non-Black authors using the slur and disciplinary action or condemnation for students and professors who use it in classrooms. Not being aware is shocking. Education, training is essential. And I thank my colleague again for this important motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Lachika. Speaking to the amendment, Councillor Reel and Degay. Councillor Reel?
Through the chair, I will be supporting this. There is a saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Here is the youngest serving councillor talking to me as one of the longest serving councillors and the oldest councillor on this council, educating me that using the N-word or racial slurs are not acceptable. So you can teach an old dog new trick, and I welcome this and this kind of education that we all need, and especially myself and the generation that I live in and the generation that are before us and all the rest, that this is not acceptable. It's not acceptable in this chamber. It's not acceptable in our community. It's not accepted in the nation itself. And I think that they've spoken volumes about this here all over, that this is not acceptable anymore. So I welcome the youngest councillor on this council teaching us something here, this old dog new trick, that we have to embrace this here. And I embrace this here. And I embrace the people that come tonight to watch what we're going to do here, that a councillor, that I am listening to my youngest councillor teaching me something tonight that I need to behave in a better way. And thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reel. Councillor Degay, amendment?
Yes, Chair Beamer, Councillor Burke, thank you for the motion. I'm wondering if we could introduce, and to Councillor Rail's point, I think we're all listening and we're all part of this moment. But on your second part, you reference members of council and senior city staff. I'm wondering if you'd be agreeable, Councillor Burke, if that reads all city staff.
Yeah, that was one of the lines that I workshopped. I didn't know if we had the authority to demand this training be done, like it must be done. So I took that word out. And yeah, I'd be happy to say all city staff instead of senior.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, the reason for that explanation because many of our frontline staff have more regular interface with community members than meaning not to be disrespectful of senior staff, but they quite often could be in positions and dealing more in a more public facing manner. I do have one question of clarification then to CAO Reyna. If we were to include in this motion that it read all members of council and all city staff, we're not contravening any procedural bylaw by requiring all city staff to undertake the training.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is negative. You are not.
Mr. Chairman, and if Councillor Burke's agreeable, I think it would be important that we just swap out the word senior and introduce the word all staff. Thank you.
Consider it done. All right, thank you. So it's all staff. Any further comments or questions? Moved by Councillor Purnell.
Thank you. I just wanted to really ask a question of clarification because we have had very good discussion about this prior when Shelley Knott did her wonderful presentation to us in her report. There was already a number of motions along this line passed by council, including education and training and updating documents. And I wonder through you, Mr. Chair, if I could ask our clerk to maybe read what we've already passed along this line, because we have gone down this road before. This is a continuation for sure, but it is something that we have been working on. If the clerk could go ahead, please.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to actions to date toward Truth and Reconciliation Report CAO PC 25-004, Council had approved the following. Council receives the presentation in this report for information. Recommendation B, that Council direct staff to deliver Indigenous cultural competency training as a priority for all members of Council and city staff in collaboration with local First Nations with a target completion date by the end of 2026. Recommendation C, that Council direct staff to review and report back on the city's signage and naming policy to enable the respectful incorporation of Indigenous names for public assets and spaces in consultation with Indigenous partners. Recommendation D, that Council direct staff to report annually on updates related to the city's commitment to reconciliation, equity, accessibility, diversity, and inclusion, with further recommendations and next steps.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Burke for a second time.
Yeah, just following up from the previous speaker, Chair Beamer, and I'm just bringing up my emails here. Our diversity, equity, and inclusion advisor, Reem Ali, actually has an anti-racism training set that on Thursday the 22nd. So it's something that has been done, but I think it's important to make an emphasis that we all do it and that city staff do it. In Shelley Knott's presentation, it was focused more on what you've read. This is more specifically focused on anti-Black racism, and it is one of the specific calls from the Trent Student Association in the report. It was one, those are the people affected, and this is what they were asking for as an actionable outcome from what happened. And so I'm honoring that, and it's really from them that that these recommendations are being put forward. It was actually in the report what they were asking for.
All right, any further comments or questions? Moved by Councillor Burke. The amendments, we'll take a vote. And that is carried. Any comments on the amended motion? Moved by Councillor Burke. We'll take a vote on the amended motion. Councillor Burke, are you comfortable with the receive for information as well on the original? Yes, okay, yep. We're going to receive for information. Yep, Mayor Leal will declare pecuniary interest on this one and won't vote.
The Chair Beamer,
Councillor Burke?
you mean receive the IC report?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then your amendments will be B, C, and D. Just a comment. Can we just make sure the training, there's options for day and nights? Is that okay just for those of us who work? Okay, okay. We're online. And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. All right, so moving on. 12E, Ontario Power Generation Nuclear Host. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. And I saw Jody DeNoble here. I have some questions through you to Ms. DeNoble, please. It says in these, now I don't know if this is the applies to the prior funding agreement or the forthcoming funding agreement, but it says that we're supposed to regularly update our nuclear emergency response plan. When was the last time we've done that?
Through the chair to Councillor Burke, our hazard specific plans are reviewed. Sorry. Pardon me. Through the chair to Councillor Burke, the city's hazard specific plans, which includes our nuclear emergency plan, are reviewed on an annual basis and updated with administrative changes. It is a support plan that sits as an annex to our all hazards emergency response plan. And that hazard specific plan is reviewed, and the staff that have roles and responsibilities associated with that plan also receive information on an annual basis.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just have a couple more questions. I'm interested in the vulnerable. It says we're supposed to conduct vulnerable population planning. Can you just briefly go over those in this new agreement, which groups in Peterborough are currently identified and planned for as vulnerable?
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Burke, as it relates specifically to our roles and responsibilities as a nuclear host community, we are planning to receive evacuees from Durham Region. So our work around vulnerable population planning is primarily in this case through our Nuclear Emergency Management Program Committee, which includes representation from the province, from Durham Region, from the City of Toronto. We work very closely, in particular, with Durham Region and Toronto officials and the plans that they have to identify their vulnerable citizens, and we work in support of receiving those persons. And in some cases, it includes support for facilities that may need to evacuate, that support vulnerable persons that require specialized care. So we try to align what we have in Peterborough as far as our local plans to support our vulnerable persons with the plans to receive the evacuees. So if I may, for instance, a long-term care home, we may plan to bring a long-term care home from Durham region, and rather than bring those residents into a reception or evacuation center in the city, we would work with our long-term care homes in Peterborough and try to identify spaces that may be available within those existing facilities where there may be supports and resources in place that may be more appropriate than coming into a community facility. So we may use common areas in a long-term care home and bring some residents there with their staff and provide accommodation in those spaces versus an evacuation center.
I appreciate it, Ms. DeNoble. Thanks so much. The last question I have was just around our capacity and the capacity of Fleming. I guess maybe maybe I missed it in the report, but what are the number of evacuees in the worst case scenario that we're expected to take into the city? And is the Fleming site capable to be able to, does it have the capacity to help with that?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Burke. The Fleming site is our designated reception center. So that is the site where evacuees, if they wish to identify and receive support, if there's a need for monitoring and decontamination in the event of a release at either Darlington or Pickering, we would first bring residents through the Fleming reception center site. And then our emergency support services team would be on hand to provide the required support. So if they needed assistance in finding accommodation or medical supports, reunification with other family members, financial support, we would be providing that support from the Fleming site. They wouldn't necessarily stay on site at Fleming. We have a number of facilities, including our community center facilities. We would look to hotels and motels to accommodate evacuees in this particular case. We may also be the community that's kind of the flow-through community. We fully recognize that under the Provincial Nuclear Emergency Response Plan, the City of Peterborough and the City of Toronto are the two designated host communities. But for the entire population potentially of Durham region to evacuate to two communities, we would have to look a bit further afield. So we would be the flow through, one of the flow through communities, and but evacuees may very well be directed further afield. They may be going to Ottawa, Kingston, other communities for accommodation purposes.
Councillor Burke, would you like your second 5 minutes?
I'm done. I'll move the report, and I just appreciate Ms. DeNoble's answers. I understand it a lot more clearly now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Burke. Mayor Leal.
Yeah, thanks very much. This report is timely. Councillor may be aware or not aware that the first of the SMRs, of course, are under construction at Darlington. But what's unique about the SMRs, they used enriched uranium, which is imported from the United States. The CANDU system, of course, uses natural uranium from Saskatchewan. So this does change the complexity of how electricity will be generated in the SMRs and the implications of using enriched uranium. So it's timely that we update our agreement with OPG. The City of Peterborough is also a member of the Canadian Association of Nuclear Host Communities. And in about a week's time, I'm going to have the opportunity to have a sit-down meeting with the chair, Adrian Foster, who's the mayor of Clarington. So these issues will be discussed in that forum. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Leal. Any further comments or questions? Moved by Councillor Burke. We'll take a vote. And that is carried. Moving right along. 12F, Traffic Technical Working Group. Councillor Real.
Through the chair, I'll move the report, and I'd like to have some questions. I don't know if as the questions goes to Commissioner Nelson or not, but on page 161, it says delegated authority to the Director of Engineering and Capital Works, the Director to amend certain bylaws which regulates traffic parking with the city and allows staff to effectively implement recommendations from the TTWG with which the director approves. But then on page 64, it says a person who disagrees with the director's decision may always approach a member of council who in turn may raise this matter under new business. Well, To me, that's an oxymoron. I mean, you've got a person that's making changes to the bylaw. Then you say, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, then you can come to your counselor and we can bring this under new business. Couple of things. First, it was my understanding that there was going to be counselors on this working group, and it isn't. It's all management. And secondly, why would you want to do this here? Because this here should read that any bylaw comes back to council for ratification of the changes to the parking and the traffic bylaw. All you're saying is here, well, if it doesn't work out, you get a whole bunch of phone calls, which we will, and which I do weekly, then you can come to under new business, an open session of council. To me, that doesn't work for me. Is it you or Mr. Giles or whoever was the author of this here? Because I see this here as a problem.
Through the chair, the intent was to try and lessen those calls that you are getting by council delegating authority to staff to hear those requests, review the technical possibilities of those requests and the possibility of implementation or something to affect change as a result of that implementation, and have staff make those changes through delegated authority to be able to make changes to those bylaws. The challenge that we're faced with is under the premise under which you have a member of the community that possibly didn't agree with the decision that was done. The manner under which typically that would be then addressed would be through possibly council raising that concern that now we have a circumstance that may not be applicable. However, the intent is that it would lessen the amount of impact to council and give people that opportunity to have access to a system that would look at those possibilities and those options to try and implement those changes or request those changes, have staff review it and implement those that are considered minor in nature through this delegated ability. And anything beyond that, then if there was staff or community members that didn't agree with the outcome or the result, there would be an opportunity to raise the question again with council.
Chair, so a couple of questions. First off, it was my understanding when you were putting this work group together, there was going to be some counselors on there. Who they were, I have no idea, but there was supposed to be some councils on this working group. What happened to that?
Through the chair, there was never an intent to have counselors. I do believe through the previous form under the traffic technical committee that was established prior. Again, it was just that it was technical representation that reviewed the requests and then subsequently put a recommendation forward. So again, I'm not sure but I don't think there was ever an intent that there was actually council representation sitting on the committee or the working group. It was always intended to be technical staff and make that recommendation, and then council would delegate authority to that figurehead, which in this circumstance is the Director of Engineering Capital Works, in order to initiate the changes to the bylaws.
Second question is, you're making these changes to the bylaws. How do you know what bylaw to change? If we're getting the calls from the residents, where's the flow through to give you the information to change the bylaw? Are you saying that you're using the AMP process and the complaints that you get? Because we're getting complaints. I get complaints every week on either traffic or parking that don't go through the AMP process.
Right.
So,
Councillor, you're in your second 5 minutes, but Commissioner, can you answer that?
Through the chair, the AMP process would come into play when you have people that are not respecting, and there's penalties associated with not respecting the bylaws or rules created through the bylaws. This is circumstance under which we would be proposing to try and create a circumstance where people would have an ability to present their issues and their concerns to staff, give a process under which staff then could review those concerns and those problems, make recommendations through the traffic technical working group, and basically do that technical review to determine, is there a concern and a problem here that should be addressed? At which point, through those recommendations, if the recommendation was approved by the director, then ultimately staff would do the appropriate changes to the bylaws that the director would approve. And those would all be vetted through our legislative services group, as well as the staff that would be involved in making those updates to the appropriate bylaws.
I'm all support for this technical working group. The problem I'm having is the way this is written. I don't think it's addressing this here, and it's just going to make more work for us. And it doesn't address the issue because we're the ones that are getting the complaints, majority of the complaints right now. So I have a problem with this here. I can't support this here the way it's written. I'm supportive of the technical working group. I think it's a movement forward. I can't support it the way it's written or presented here, of giving delegated authority to the director. There should be some way that it comes back to council. If you're going to change a bylaw, it should come back to council in a report to tell us what the bylaw changes and what it's going to be. Not the way it is now. And then after the fact, we start to get phone calls or emails. Why is this happening? And we don't know anything about it. Then we have to come to council at an open meeting and say, oh, I'd like to raise the issue about traffic. I find that not proactive. I don't see this being proactive. I see it raising more red flags than it does anything. That's the question I'm raising. The way this is written and giving delegated authority to the director to make changes to the bylaw. We should have some sort of input. It should come back to council. How I word that, it should come back to council. You want to change the bylaw, tell us the bylaw, show us the changes, and then it's yay or nay.
Okay.
That's what I'm raising.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hill. I have Councillor Burke, Mayor Leal, and Councillor DeGay. Councillor Burke.
Chair Beamer, thank you. And guys, I spent a lot of time this weekend on our website trying to find the meetings where we've discussed this before, because we've discussed this before in April. And I understand, to Commissioner Nelson, I really understand a little bit of what you're trying to pitch to us here about the efficiency of the plan. I get that. I think there are certain examples where it would be better for staff to have delegated authority to do things that are obvious. Most things we deal with are anyway, I'll leave it there. But I was trying to find the other meeting because I remembered us all around the table sort of sharing similar concerns like the previous speaker mentioned about the makeup of that committee. And Councillor Parnell was the one on in August 2024 that actually deferred the original report. It was late in the evening. I think it was 11 o'clock. And a lot of us around the table had similar like issues with how the makeup of the technical working group. And we were supposed to defer that back to the next council cycle. So I don't know if I missed a meeting or if cycle means 2 years, but it's here now. It feels like it's the exact same thing that we deferred in August 2024. And my concerns are similar to what people spoke about at that meeting in August, where I understand what you're putting down, but I have issues with the makeup. I have issues with the makeup of that working group. The other thing is there's no one in that working group that deals with accessibility. We have traffic signals, people that, it feels like we should have some people from accessibility, and that's just my hot glance at the report. I'm sure if we dug into it and all of us sort of thought about it, there would be people that would be missing from that technical working group. So I don't know how we do this. I think instead of killing it on the floor, we should defer it back to staff to sort of reflect on our comments and make some changes. That would be my idea. And I was sort of under the assumption that was going to happen, that we were going to be presented with a different structure than what was in the original working group in August 2024. That's not the case. So if someone wants to defer this with some suggestions, I would support that. Otherwise, for the reasons of the previous speaker and the reasons that I've shared, I can't support this as it is. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Burke. I have Mayor Leal and Councillor DeGay. Mayor Leal.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I went to my archival information this afternoon just to check on something. And the previous Traffic Capital Committee had the chair of transportation on the working group back then. The chair of transportation, of course, was elected a member of council that reported back as part of the working group. It would be certainly my suggestion that the portfolio co-chairs of operations sit on this working group to provide that political dimension that these discussions require in many ways to bring that into being. They would get the technical stuff, but also have the opportunity to get the political kind of aspect of this. And it just to answer Councillor Burke somewhat, the manager of traffic and parking services, it's always been my understanding that they were always quite sensitive to accessibility issues. When we were designing lights for intersections, other aspects of signalized intersections with regards to the pressing of buttons, the audible sound to assist people with disabilities was incorporated in that. But I really do think an amendment should be made to have the operations portfolio co-chairs be part of the working committee.
All right, so did you want to move that?
I could move that.
Sure. So moved by Mayor Lil to have the co-chairs of the operations portfolio.
Councillor Real Vasiliadis, I think would.
Okay. And
Councillor, Mr. Chair, Councillor Vasiliadis and Councillor Real, I think
okay.
would be well qualified to be part of that.
So we'll move that. I'm sure we don't need too much debate on that. We'll take a vote.
Thanks for the suggestion.
Just on that for now. Okay, so it's in front of you. Yeah, this is the amendment. Let's just vote on it, then you can speak to the amended motion. And that is carried. Okay, speaking to the amended motion, which is this and everything else, Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. Speaking to this motion and everything else have you described, this matter was discussed in some detail together with myself and Councillor LaChica with Commissioner Nelson. I was satisfied with the explanation of the process, including how matters of accessibility would be addressed, and everything we consider relative to roads, sidewalks, passive trailers, automatically an accessible lens. So I'm not concerned it would not be addressed. I might, if I can, Mr. Chairman, to thank Mr. Giles. We did have a query from a member of the public. Mr. Giles was very quick to respond and how accessibility matters would be addressed. During our discussions with Commissioner Nelson at the time, your worship, meaning no disrespect to the additional work that we may just be assigning to two of our colleagues, it was felt at the time that council representation would not be necessary. But I'm not going to argue the point. And when I look at the list of matters that are going to be considered, for example, if it's a four-way stop, and if everything else can be accommodated, do we really need to see that report at council to say we have a four-way stop and there's no issues? Probably not. But what we might be considering, if it was a four-way stop and it was not being recommended and there was disagreement, I understand that that would normally, and Commissioner Nelson is nodding the affirmative, we'd be considering that. So to my colleagues, thank you for taking on more work.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duguay. Mayor Leal, second time.
Thank you. And I just want to follow up with Councillor Duguay because I think he said it quite correctly. With the two portfolio co-chairs on there, if they see a four-way stop, that's not, they would just say this doesn't have to come to council. Yeah. But their insight would be helpful.
All right. Any further comments or questions? Moved by Councillor Real, the amended motion. We'll take a vote. Purnell, yea or nay? Yay. And that is carried. Moving right along, 12G, designation of 201 George Street North. Councillor DeGay has declared a pecuniary interest on this. Speaking, Councillor Purnell.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we on
Yeah,
201?
12G, 201 George Street North.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I did, through you, Mr. Chair, I will move it, but I have an amendment first. I did ask our director, Brad Appleby, if the owner of this property and the other one on the agenda had confirmed, had received this notice. The initial answer was yes, the envelope had been picked up or delivered through registered mail, but then we learned today, late today, that the owner of the property had in fact not received that notice, even though we did our due diligence. Staff did. They did the registered mail. They checked that it was picked up or delivered. So we've definitely done our part. The staff have done their part. But still, unfortunately, the owner of the property had not actually received this intention. He has since sent an email to all of us, citing his history with the property and that he is not in favor of his property being designated. He is maintaining it, looking after it. There's an issue with that. He has no intention to demolish, but he feels the heritage designation really does impact him financially in being able to maintain that property to the standard that he has brought it up to. And also we know there are insurance implications. So Mr. Chair, through you, I've worked with the clerk. So I'm prepared to move A, that we will receive the information, and then a new B, which would be the amendment, that council has no intention to designate 201 George Street North, and that we will remove the property from the Heritage Registry.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Purnell. So speaking to that amendment, Councillor Burke on the amendment.
Chair Beamer, thank you. Can I ask that we separate those out, please, for the
Yep.
vote? Thank
can do
you.
that.
And then I just have a question to staff because this is something that's important to me, but it seems that the focal point of the issue always rests upon whether or not the property owner wants to do it, which we've kind of decided that that's the way we're going to vote. But in reading some of these submissions from the property owner, their biggest barrier to wanting to have their properties designated is financial incentive. And it's interesting that we haven't had that conversation as a council to say, because it is such an issue, to say, what can we do as a community, as a council, to offer some financial incentives? It doesn't have to be a big pot of money into an account. So I believe. So my question to Mr. Appleby is staff working on preparing anything to sort of update council what we could do to incentivize designating some of these properties, even through a tax break? What are other municipalities doing? And when was the last time? Because I know from serving on PAC that list of incentive money has long run out and there is a waiting list. So my questions are what can you give us like a 30-second history of how that funding became to incentivize designation, and what it would take to open up the doors again to allow people to benefit from a heritage designation? And then the third part is like, what are other municipalities doing? Is there anything creative that we could do that we're not thinking of?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. So I may start and then I may ask if Mr. Walsh or my colleague might want to add in some thoughts. But in terms of the first part of the question, the city does have a program to offer some tax relief for certain properties that are subject to heritage designation. That program is funded through the capital budget, so the funding for that is limited, and really it's fully subscribed and has been for quite some time. So, in terms of what can be done about that, either it's sort of upping the funding associated with that program, at budget time, or perhaps looking at whether there are different ways to get at the same thing rather than doing it through a capital project the way it's done right now. In terms of what other municipalities are doing, I think we would need to go do a little bit of homework. Mr. Walsh might have some more insight on what other cities are doing, and so I'll pass it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So as Director Appleby mentioned, currently the city offers the Heritage Property Tax Relief Program, but with the budget that we're currently allotted, the program is oversubscribed. A solution that we see in other municipalities that we do employ in Peterborough, specific to the Avenues and Neighborhood Heritage Conservation District, is a grant program where eligible projects which are deemed to be restoring a property's heritage attributes are eligible for a refund from the city on a certain amount of the expenses of that project. Thank you.
You know, I think we would, I'll end with this, and I thank you for allowing me, Chair Beamer, but like, I don't think anyone is against the idea that the history and the legacy of some of these buildings are important. It seems to me like a waste of time to put all the effort and energy into these reports, to have PACAC, and then have the decision be based upon whether or not the owner wants to do it or not, when we're not offering any incentive for the owner to want to do it. And we know that it's a financial burden on them to do so. So it feels like it would be important for us as council to be presented with some options, especially since we have a long list of properties to go through. Instead of having staff do this exercise of putting all this legwork into these reports, but having the decision not at all be based on the significance of the property. You know, I'm sure we could creatively think about some incentives that maybe in some cases would work to want to have property owners have their places be designated. And that's just a point I'm trying to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. So Councillor Burke, good point. I gave you a little bit of leniency, but just moving on, if we can just keep our comments right to the specific property. Councillor Degay, Councillor Chica. Councillor Degay on 201.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Contextually, 201 George Street North is wholly contained within a floodplain. And this is relevant because the building and its attributes, to ever change it would be very, very difficult. To expand the building, to change the parking, to change access, which would require a permit, also then requires a permit for ORCA. So I'm satisfied the building as it exists today, which has been improved, still respects its heritage intent. It still showcases well. And if the property owner is saying they're not willing to and oppose the designation, we are not going to lose the structural or heritage integrity of the building itself. So I'm satisfied in this case, we will still be able to, the public will still be able to enjoy an important building from a heritage lens. Particularly because recent investments, but also it is somewhat limited to what can be done in the event there is ever yet another flood. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Degay. Councillor Chica.
Thank you very much, Chair Beamer. I just wanted to make a comment just because, you know, I love heritage. People probably realize that. I'm a history nut, and that was my thing as a teacher. And we have, you know, communities, we have towns and cities. I was in Port Hope this weekend, and I just looked at that downtown, and I just saw all of the heritage markers and the beautiful buildings, which we have. And so I know that I've said this before, but in some ways, it feels like our process is sabotaging the available steps that the Heritage Act presents for us to give buildings a chance. Let's debate the report on the criteria, on the heritage attributes, like they do in other communities. But it feels like we're shutting down this debate just because somebody did or didn't get a letter. They're going to have an opportunity in the heritage process to be able to state their opinion, but at least the public, this is a public trust, our beautiful buildings in the historical city. The public cares. So why don't we as a council give the public an opportunity to hear us talk about the merits of these beautiful buildings? We're not allowing that forum. And that to me is sad. And I think that our heritage committee is working so hard, and it's disrespectful to them and to staff who spend long hours creating these reports for us to be able to discuss them. Why are we shutting this down? I think we make a big mistake by setting this precedent. City staff are doing their job. Let's honor them and honor the committee by giving the respect that's due to these buildings that come up. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Chica. Any comments or questions? Councillor DeGay, a second time.
Excuse me, Chair Beamer, earlier you indicated that I had a conflict. I believe correctly it would be Councillor Hakey. I'm not conflicted in this case.
Apologies, sorry if I said your name. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Councillor Hakey has the pecuniary interest. So we'll take a vote. I know Councillor Berkey asked to separate it out. This amendment vote will just be the one, and then we'll separate out the main motion. So moved by Councillor Purnell, we'll take a vote. I think we want the amendment first. Yeah, apologies. The amendment first, and then that's the one. And that carries. And now the amended motion. Okay, so now the main motion's received for information in this amendment. Yeah. Yeah. So any comments on the amended motion, which will be what we just voted on and receive for information? And we'll separate that out if we can, Madam Clerk. So, Mr. Clerk, can you just straighten us out here?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I believe, Councillor, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe she had moved as the main motion, she had moved to receive the report for information, and that the B part was that council has no interest in pursuing the heritage designation of 201 George Street North, and that the property be removed from the heritage list.
Correct. Which we voted on. Okay, so let's just vote on A then. Moved by Councillor Purnell, we'll vote on A.
Mr. Chair, I think the just before the vote finishes, I think it's just to receive for information, as the councillor put.
Okay, if we can just reword that, just simply say that the report's received for information.
I can provide that to my colleague here. Please. So Mr. Chair, would be just to receive for information.
Okay, moved by Councillor Purnell. We'll take a vote. And that is carried. We'll note Councillor Hakey did not participate. All right, last item under committee reports, 12H, designation of 100 Street West, 227 to 233. Councillor Hakey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move the report, but I do want to make some comments based on some of the conversation around the table. Councillor Chica brought up a very good point in the last comments, which was, honor the heritage and honor the committee. And I don't disagree with that, but I think you also have to honor the owner of the building that's put the money into it. I know this isn't the place, but I think we have to have a discussion on the go forward. And to Councillor Burke's point, it might be a bit backwards. Maybe, maybe not. But maybe we do consider the owner first, present him with a list of options that they have with opportunities to reduce taxes or get facade changes, so on and so forth, before you ask any of the committee or any of the city to go through the long, arduous process of recognizing the building in a report, perhaps. Anyways, that's all. I just wanted to be able to vote against this, so that's why I'm moving it.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Moved by Councillor Hickey. Any comments or questions? We'll take a vote. And that is carried. All right, notice the motion. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. If the council will allow me, I'll certainly read the motion if you want, but if not, I could summarize it. Okay, if that would be everybody's wish. Basically, what you have is the original farmhouse that was part of the development of which is today Heritage Park. The farm, to the best of my knowledge, has been abandoned for about 25 years. The owner of the property is not a client of mine, so I can talk to it. It's a different situation because it is on the registry, but the city's also issued a demolish or a notice to demolish, and consequently the owner wants it demolished also. So you're caught, and I agree it has to go back expeditiously to PACAC. So I do support this motion. Well, obviously I moved it, but that's really encapsulates what we're dealing with tonight. Oh, and the other issue was that there has been people that have been in the building, and I believe, and I've been trying to confirm this, but one little guy was injured playing in the building. I'd heard that through the neighborhood, but I can't really determine. If you go by now, it's boarded up and boarded up and boarded up, and it's probably overdone right now. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hickey. Any comments or questions? Councillor Burke?
Yeah, Chair Beamer. I was sort of mildly paying attention to this. I heard through someone that this was the most read article in the Examiner, like by a long shot, in this past week of news, which is very surprising. There's been a lot in the news, and I'm wondering if there's an opportunity, maybe to Commissioner Nelson or to Commissioner Laidman, if we could connect the owner with the Peterborough Museum. To see if there's an opportunity for the museum and archives to sort of look at the farmhouse and see if there's any architectural features that could be saved in the museum from the farmhouse.
Through the chair, we can reach out and ask that question. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Any further comments or questions? Moved by Councillor Hickey. Notice the motion. We'll take a vote. And that is carried. All right, we have other business this evening. Other business, Mayor Leal and Councillor Duguay.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Yesterday, the 66th of the final edition of the Liftlock Adam U Hockey Tournament came to a close. I want to sincerely thank Chair Dan McNamee, his 13 directors, including Councillor Baldwin, for making the 66th edition such a wonderful success. Started in 1958, the Liftlock Adam Tournament is older than the Pee Wee Tournament in Quebec City, which was founded in 1960. The tagline for the tournament says us all, not just a hockey tournament, It's a community affair. This year's tournament proceeds will go to Kawartha Food Share. The memories, Mr. Chair, will live forever.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little, for that, and thank Councillor Baldwin and everyone who's ever made that happen over the years. Amazing, amazing. Other business, Councillor Crowley and Real. Councillor Crowley? Yeah, you're Councillor Crowley. I think I just mentioned his name randomly again. I don't know. Sorry. I had 6 weeks off. I'm a little rusty. Councillor Crowley, then Real, then adjournment. Councillor Crowley.
So as mentioned earlier, I think I will move a motion, and maybe I will just ask Commissioner Potts if it's acceptable, but I believe I sent it to our clerks that staff review the portfolio chair's bylaw and report back to council with any recommended updates. I don't know if that's sufficient. Is that okay? So, and I do understand that would probably be 2/3 majority, I think, is other business. Is that
It
correct?
would be 2/3, yeah.
Okay.
But
So-
moved by Councillor Crowley, any comments or questions on that one? All right, moved by Councillor Crowley, we'll take a vote. Little rusty today. Little rusty. Mayor Little's a yay. I think his technology is struggling. And that is carried. I have Councillor Real, Duguay, and then adjournment. Councillor Real, other business.
Through the chair, on January the 9th, 2026, I received a letter, and I believe all of council did, from the Chief of Police, Stu Betts, that goes well beyond the pale of an employee of a board or department chastising an elected city councillor. In all my years on city council, I have never seen or received a letter of this kind. If this is a rogue letter from the police chief, I asked for the police board to investigate discipline up to including termination of employment and a letter of apology to me. If this was sanctioned by the board, it draws a different perspective as to the two board members and the police board are members of city council, the mayor and Councillor Baldwin. Before the meeting, I spoke with Councillor Baldwin and said he knew nothing about this letter that came to us from Chief Betts. This will be my reply to that, not to Steve Betts, but to the community. City council is not a stakeholder in the police budget. We are the fiduciary, the statutory funding authority, debating about police budgets, including the size, the growth, and sustainability. It is not only legitimate, it is our legal responsibility to the taxpayers. Nothing in the Community Safety and Policing Act grants the chief of police the authority to public reprimand or demand retraction from an elected councillor for how they characterize budget pressures, policy trade-offs, or government concerns. Robust disagreement in public is not misinformation, it is democracy. Your letter goes well beyond beyond correcting figures. It assigns motive, alleges bias, and use of language such as recklessness, disingenuous, and dishonorable to describe an elected official performing his duties in a public meeting. This is inappropriate and it risks undermining the very independence and professionalism the police depends on. If there are new numerical clarifications you wish to provide, I welcome them. They will be reviewed as part of the council's ongoing budget deliberations, just as information from every other department is. But I will not accept the framing that asking hard questions by one of the city's largest and fastest growing budget is anti-police, anti-safety, or illegitimate. My role is to advocate for the taxpayers and for balancing public investment across housing, infrastructure, social services, and policing. That is exactly what I am doing. Respectfully yours, Councillor Riel, Councillor for Ashburnham, Ward 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Riel. I have Councillor DeGay, Burke, and then adjournment. Councillor DeGay.
Chair Beamer, I wasn't wishing to speak to this item.
No, I know. You have other business, though.
Well, thank you. If I might, supplemental to what Mayor Leal said, respecting the Lift Lock tournament, a special note of appreciation needs to be extended to our municipal staff. I had occasion to attend the tournament. Here's a promotion for my grandson and his hockey team, the Cortha Coyotes. They thoroughly enjoyed themselves at the 66th annual event. But to our municipal staff, I watched them and observed them quietly while at the tournament, working diligently throughout the event. And I'm happy to report to council that there were concession operations operating at Miskin and Evinrude, well provisioned, well appreciated by the public. And again, I would like to echo my thanks to the Lift Lock hockey group, because 2 of my children have also played in this same tournament, and it was a big deal to them, even though it was in their backyard. So to echo Councillor Baldwin's to the mayor's comments, thank you, Councillor Baldwin and others. Fantastic event, and I'm encouraged that it will continue in a similar version on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor DeGay. Other business, Councillor Burke.
Chair Beamer, I'm picking up for Councillor Riel's item that was on the floor of other business with the letter from the police chief that we received. And I just wanted to also comment on it because I was shocked by that letter. To me, it was something that was sent in a way to shame the councillor and humiliate him. And I was shocked at the tone and the content of that letter. I think factual clarification is definitely appropriate, but repeated derogatory personal characterizations and assumptions about an elected official's motives, integrity, and beliefs are not. Budget debate and scrutiny are core responsibilities of this council, and they do not mean that there's evidence of bias or bad faith. And I want to say for myself, I expect all correspondence between the police service and council to remain professional, factual, and within proper governance boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Crowley will take a vote. And that is carried. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week. Appreciate it.